Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for September 3rd through 9th. This week I read one book, I watched 2 movies, and I listened to 2 books. As I talked about in last week's wrap-up when I watched Blackbird, this week I read In with the Devil, which is the book written by James Keene and somebody else who I feel like did the majority of the writing, recounting the time that a prosecutor put him in the same jail as a serial killer to see if he could get that serial killer to confess to some things. What I really enjoyed about this experience is seeing things from the book that were definitely also reflected in the TV series. However, they were changed ever so slightly for the series. So I like seeing that they took all this source material and they still used it, but they used it in slightly different ways for that medium, which was just very interesting, honestly. I also really enjoyed finding out that there was so much context of the time frame and the prosecution in this book, and it wasn't just solely an account of his time in prison and what happened. Because the show is very much the same, it gives you all this context so you know how high the stakes really are for this situation, and I loved seeing that this show basically just took everything from this book, kind of slightly rearranged a few things, did a couple of things for more dramatic effect, and then created the show, which is very interesting to think about. If you didn't see last week when I talked about Blackbird, I highly recommend it. The 2 lead actors on it are absolutely phenomenal. And then if you are an absolute nerd like me, you should also read the book after watching the show, or vice versa, whichever way you want to do it, because knowing little details and how they change is just absolutely fascinating to me. On the movies I watched, we started off Triple October, which, as you might remember if you've been here for a while, is something I started in 2020, where from September 1st through November 30th is all October. Because in 2020, time meant nothing, so we might as well do this, and I decided to do it every year. We started off our spooky season watches with a rewatch of Practical Magic. If by chance you've never seen it before, this is a movie about 2 sisters who are raised by their 2 aunts in this very cool house that I'm really sad doesn't actually exist, because that house is very, very cool. However, it was just built up on a lot because it was on rented land and they had to knock it down, and that's just sad to me. It will, however, live on in infamy in that cross-stitch that I did last year during spooky season. In any case, they grow up knowing that their aunts are witches and they have witch tendencies in their family. There's even this distant relative of theirs that the island they live on is named after, and because of that distant relative they know there's a family curse where if they fall in love with somebody, that person is going to die. That comes into fruition in a couple of different ways, and if you've truly never seen it before, I don't want to tell you any more than that. I just want you to watch it because it's fun. The other spooky thing we watched was definitely more on the creepy side, and that is The Menu. This is also on an isolated island, and it happens that the character that we're following is going with this guy who is a huge foodie. He is very into this, to the point where he is yelling at her not to smoke before they go because that will change your palate and the mouthfeel of things. And they're going to this very exclusive restaurant on this island, and it is very sinister from the get-go. Like, as this woman is taking them through the different facilities on the island, she actually takes them through the facility where the people who work in the restaurant live, and just even looking at that one room that they all live in together was creepy enough for me. It was just lined up beds, a shower with no curtain, and a toilet out in the open, and I'm just like, okay, would not want to live there. This is really an ensemble cast movie because you have all of these people sitting down for this one meal at this one restaurant, and things quickly turn and people are not expecting it, and it's just so interesting. All of the different reveals of this, but no, actually this, but oh my god, this. It was creepy and weird, and I enjoyed my time with it, but my goodness, I definitely don't want to go to a restaurant like this ever in my life. The first audiobook that I finished this week is called Sorry Bro. This is about an Armenian-American woman who is working as a journalist, but always gets the fluff pieces, and that's really annoying. As this starts out, she's sitting down with her boyfriend, who she's been seeing for, I feel like, a good number of years, and he decides to propose in this really ridiculous restaurant in this really ridiculous way that just doesn't really work for her, and she doesn't really know if she wants to say yes. In fact, she kind of wants to say no. He's leaving the next day for a business trip, so basically they leave it as she's going to think about it for the next 3 weeks, but really she needs to say no. She wants to say no. When she breaks this news to her mother's like, good, I think you should dump him and I think you should date an Armenian man, and we have all of these cultural events coming up in the next few weeks, so I feel like you should go to them and meet some men. And she immediately sits down and starts making a spreadsheet of the different men that her daughter should meet. However, our main character is bisexual and definitely meets a very interesting woman at these events and really wants to date her. But she's not out, she doesn't know if this woman also likes women, and also she doesn't know how her family would react. This was really great. It had some predictable beats every once in a while. You knew certain things were going to come up and people were going to feel like they were lied to because things had been omitted in conversations and that type of thing, but I very much enjoyed the whole experience of these characters getting to know each other. I should also mention that this was the August pick for the Queer or Not book club, which is a book club I've been trying to participate in, but I've never made it to one of the live streams, and the book for July was something I couldn't even find, so I didn't participate there, but I did read the book for June, which is when it started, and the book for August, although I didn't get it until the end of the month. That is a book club that is hosted by The Reading Wren, and I will link them down below. The other audiobook that I finished this week is American Demon. This one is all about Eliot Ness and the American version of Jack the Ripper. Eliot Ness is not a name I was particularly familiar with, but he is the guy that caught Al Capone, and he did that in Chicago, and then after that he moved to Cleveland and was working as the safety director, I believe was his title, which is basically the person that's above all of the public services, such as the police force and the fire services and that type of thing, as well as sanitation, all of those types of things. And he was really trying to clean up the city, which it seemed like he did a pretty good job of because there was a lot of corruption. However, there was a serial killer around this time, which was in the 1930s, who was killing people and just leaving their pieces around the city in grotesque ways. And ultimately, this person was never caught. There are some theories as to who it could have been, especially one person who was connected to a person who I believe was a congressman or a senator or somebody rich and powerful, so there's a chance it was that person. We don't know that for sure. We don't know if this person just stopped killing or if they moved on, or how many of these murders were actually the same person, whether or not we had a couple of different people doing this. Ultimately, it's a true crime story that doesn't have an ending that is definite. You could tell this one was very well researched, and I am definitely still in my true crime era, so I obviously found it fascinating. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment, but you want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and we'll see you very soon. Bye!